again. So we obviously have new people. So we are going to put you on spot because that's what we do. Julie, Asta, Swagat, Vikram. So where are you guys based? Where are you at the moment? What's happening?
So I'm basically from Delhi, and I'm working as a therapist. I am working in a college and I have private practice. So that's all that's going for now.
Nice, nice. What about you, Swagat?
I'm basically from Assam. So I completed my psychology from Ambedkar University. I was working in an NGO as a facilitator for like 1.5 years. And then now I'm starting my own food delivery service because I'm like into cooking. So academics is a bit sidelined, but I still love to like engage and read psychology stuff.
Nice. Food delivery is always good. It's always useful. Hi, Julie.
Hey, how's everyone?
Hi, Juhi. Good to see you. You have been part of the group. Never got a chance to interact.
Yeah, this is my first time that I'm attending this.
That's great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Where are you based, Julie? Where are you at the moment?
I am based out of Pune.
I love Pune. Nice.
It is a nice city. It has lovely weather. It's been raining here. So, yeah. I can't hear you, Sakshi.
Nobody's allowed to talk about weather today, please. I'm in 35 degrees with no AC. No, the standing fan I have makes so much noise that you can't even like turn it on. Don't talk about the weather. I will. Hi, Sudhir. Nice to see you again.
Sakshi, we lost you there. You were not audible.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Nice. Hi, Sudeep. How are you?
Hi, Sakshi, I'm good.
Yeah, nice to see you again. How was your session?
Same here. Lovely. It was good.
Yeah, I wish I could join.
No, that's good. That's okay. We have the recording. I'll share that with you. I have done my share of talking last evening, so I will just listen to it. The topic was very interesting, so I thought I will come and hear.
Nice. And hi, Vikram. I'm guessing first time for you at glass half full.
Yeah, it is.
Nice. Well, welcome to the session. And I know you and Gurleen were chatting initially, but I missed it. So where are you based? What are you doing?
I do nothing, and I'm based in Gurgaon.
I like
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Actually, what is everybody drinking? Shouldn't that be the question of the hour, Gurleen? What is everybody drinking?
I am kind of dehydrated because of last night. It was Friday, so I'm sticking with green tea for now. Yeah. What about others?
Must be quite painful, huh, Gurleen? Green tea.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm saving
Regular chai.
some regular chai for Sudeep. Okay, cool.
What's with other people? So Swagat, we know what you're drinking.
Coffee it is for me.
In the
Cold
frame.
coffee.
Coffee for me.
Masala chai.
Water for me.
Chai.
Okay. I'm drinking gin, obviously. I found this cute little bottle and I couldn't keep my hands off of it. So it's Hendrix, which is a very good gin, and I'm collecting small bottles. So yeah, cheers, and we can begin then.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Okay, we have Thomas also joining.
Hello.
Hi, Thomas. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Gurleen?
I'm doing well, thank you. Which part of the world are you in currently, since you travel all the time?
I'm in Brussels now.
Oh, that's cool. Great.
Yeah, it is cool. Unfortunately, I got sick in Nepal before coming here, so.
Oh,
yeah.
But
so interested to know what's the connection there. Hi, Thomas.
hi.
Okay, so Gurleen, how do you want to introduce how
Sure. So we both are psychology enthusiasts, and we met each other on a common psychology group. And Thomas is, working on his own YouTube channel, and he keeps traveling. He talks to a lot of people from different countries, and he's a psychologist himself. And last time he had a session on Carl Jung's archetypes, which was great. So I thought of inviting him for this session as well.
I just want to rectify. I don't have a YouTube channel, but I'm a
Okay.
writer, and so I make research on politics, development, and conflicts, and on a sociological, but also anthropological and psychological basis. So I try to understand the connection between all of these aspects everywhere I travel. But traveling these days has become a little bit complicated. I guess you guys know why.
Yeah, it's a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
Welcome, and I reckon there's a lot of new people today, so I'll just quickly share 1 minute of what this is. So Glass Half Full was basically a random idea with me and Gurleen, and we thought, right, there's a lot of formal behavior, especially when it comes to the psychology community in India. And we thought there's a need for more candid networking. So letting go of panelists, subject matter experts, one person talking, 100 people listening. It was more like, let's all have a chat. And obviously drinks were involved because drinks are nice. So that's that. So usually me and Gurleen will look at, what people are listening to, talk choose a session, choose a theme, and then just have a chat. Usually we started like, yeah, let's do it for 30 minutes, but it's never 30 minutes because we all are a very chatty and lovely bunch. So happy for everybody to stay on, and happy for people to drop off as they feel okay with. But please contribute. It's more of a everybody's talking and putting in ideas, and just let us know what you think. Today's session is more around dark psychology. The reason why we chose this was we have done, Gulin, 8 sessions now, 6 or 7.
Yeah, this is the 8th one, Sakshi.
Eight sessions now, and so this is one of the tangents that kept on coming up in different sessions. So people would talk about any random topic, but every time diverse into or digress into dark psychology, right? So what is the dark side of human behavior? What are people doing that not everybody's looking at? What are the shadows? Some concepts, I think we also talked about negative visualization, or thinking about how plans fail and how that is good for you, because then you always know you're prepared for a failed plan. So I think that was very interesting, and it was obviously one of those topics that everybody wanted to talk about. So here's an opportunity. And if anybody would like to kind of give us a head start and jump into it, then go for it. But I think my first thoughts were, what do people get when we actually, so when Gurleen obviously released the poster, and you guys all saw it, what were the initial thoughts around dark psychology, and where are you coming from in that topic?
The first thought I had was Gurleen remembered me for this.
Yeah.
I was like, despite trying to come across as squeaky clean and pretty colorful, she does connect with my dark side. Just a joke, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we all have a dark side, and I find dark side more interesting than the persona side, because that is always interesting. That makes you you. Your flaws makes you you. So, what about others? What about rest of the people? What were your thoughts about the poster, and what in general do you think dark psychology is? What is dark element?
I when I think about dark psychology, I find it far more interesting than I do the regular positive psychology. I think it's the dark side of human nature that really tells you who the person is, and it's one of those things that you embrace in yourself. Life is literally limitless, because when you're just focusing on the good, the positive, you're literally missing out on a lot of other aspects that you have. Because once you embrace the dark side of your personality, you can use it. So once I remember one of the very first posts about Sakshi when she wrote was, what is the one thing that people don't associate you with? And I had written anger. This is the one word nobody would tell that to me. But in many ways, it is true and it's not true, because I don't get angry very quickly. If I do get irritated, frustrated, it'll go away. But the real anger which I really love about myself is that I'm a very cool, calculated person. And when I don't like something, when I don't like a few people, I just observe and I keep on calculating. It goes inside my head. It's just the wheels are turning. And I know that if at one point of time, if this person is just going to cross the limit, I'll have this really amazing set of things to tell them, to show them. And I just keep on imagining how amazing it would be, because the cold and calculating side of the human nature is far more dangerous than the angry side. I'm never afraid of people who are angry. I'm more afraid of the people who see everything and be like, okay, sure, keep on doing.
Yeah.
So I think when someone says dark psychology, that's what really interests me. And I just want to know what more is there in us that we're hiding, that we're not ready to explore. And that's just something that's really interesting. So when Gulin, you put up the post, I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about something super interesting.
Nice way to put it. And I think in the end you said something like, what are the things about us that we are hiding, or we are not ready to show. I find that very interesting, simply because I would never associate dark psychology with that. I would actually think about dark psychology and say, look, we obviously talk about positive psychology and all the things that your strengths and how to utilize those strengths, don't focus on the negatives. I would almost think of dark psychology as, right, there are obviously things that limit you, or you think of them as your challenge or limitation areas. How do you deal with them, right? What is it that you find so bad about yourself or so wrong about yourself that you face these challenges that inhibit your everyday functioning? So I would think about those things, and not necessarily hidden. I mean, I was generally a very angry person growing up, and that was very palpable. People could see it, like all that anger and frustration, and then you kind of mold it into a way of, I'm gonna use all this anger in a positive manner, right? Or I'm gonna try and reduce it. So I think I almost feel like dark psychology is about that. Is just not hiding that you're only positive, nice, altruistic human beings, but you also have some of the things that you might need to work upon, and that's completely acceptable, right?
Um, like for example, I have a like something I want to share about like dark psychology. You have in the, and it's pretty much like a new phenomenon that's started in the 20th century, which is called like positive thinking. This idea that if you just start thinking positively, you'll just become a positive person and you'll become happy. But when you think about it, our mind is programmed to have, I think, something like 70-80% of our thoughts are basically negative. So we basically think about negative stuff all the time. And I think like the dark side of someone is the non-acceptance of negative sides. Like for example, when someone has done something bad and is going to say, no, I never did that, or is going to use like negative things that person had done in the past and pretend it was something positive, or just like denial is, I think, pretty much a big part of like dark psychology. But you'll also have mostly denial, or I would say also unconscious behaviors, like things that we're going to do without really know why we're doing these things, like for something that we're going to say at a moment to someone. I guess we all had at some point in your life, whether with a friend or a lover or a colleague or something, we said something, but we just don't know why we said that, and somehow it comes from somewhere, and that's where the darkness is, I'd say, located. Um, that's what I think when I think about like dark psychology.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's very interesting, Thomas. It's coming from a place which you probably haven't accepted and almost learned behaviors, right? So a lot of things that are coming up as dark behaviors are learned as well. You might learn a certain reaction or anger from your parents or from somebody you've seen growing up or something like that. What do you think, Sudeep? I saw you were nodding your head a couple of times. What do you think about that?
No,
Yeah. Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead, Thomas, please.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's I think you're pretty much right. I can take an example of me, like to go even deeper, of me when I was at university a long time ago. So we had like ski holidays with the university, and so I went to the ski holidays, and you know, university holidays is pretty much about drinking in Europe. And on the first day, we got a lot of drinking, and at that time I was pretty much new in the university, and I didn't knew not so much people. And I went outside to get a sandwich, and then it's pretty much a miserable story, but I think it's a very interesting story. And I went outside to get a sandwich, and then I fell asleep in front of the building with my sandwich in my hand, and I had in my pocket of my vest a box of paracetamol that was like half empty, and it just fell out of my vest. So imagine someone who's like unconscious with a half empty box of paracetamol. So like they call an ambulance, and they thought there was pretty much a big emergency, when they thought someone was trying to commit suicide when it was just a drunk guy being drunk. And they brought me back to my room after I explained them, no, I'm just drunk and those are just my paracetamol, like it's just a coincidence. And they brought me back to my room at the moment where everybody was going on, which means that I basically made friend with everybody by illustrating myself that way on the first day. And there's a part of me asking myself, is like deeply like in my subconscious and very deep, there's not some kind of unconscious behavior that made me fall asleep at that moment to just find an opportunity to meet so many people, because the day after I was friends with everybody, because they all hotels I had seen that. And that's a thing I've been thinking about recently. But my question is, was it just a coincidence, or was it like a series of very unconscious behaviors under me, located in getting popular by making a giant drama, uh, like like that? And you see, like I've seen many times in my life people who tend to like illustrate themselves in manners like that by doing something, you know, that is kind of spectacular and also stupid. And you see people who they do that once, but then they're going to do that again and again and again and again, and each time like they're like, I don't understand why these things always happen to me, but I think there must be also some unconscious side of them which is going to provoke these things one way or another.
Would be. What do you guys think about that? Because I'm very interested to hear. What do you think? If it's unconscious, if it's learned behavior, it's just coincidence.
So if you ask me like how shadow is formed, so basically when you are born, you pretty much know nothing about the world. All you have is your urges or instincts, but you don't really have a mental framework or idea about the way reality works. And the shadow always has to do with the ideas, right? So basically, when you're a baby, you don't have a shadow at all, but it quickly starts to sort of build up as you go, or as you grow. And so as you start to identify with things, for instance, you learn your name, that I am Gurleen, what you look like, and this is me, I like the color purple, or I like to listen to specific genre of music, etc., etc. So all of these learned behavior from the environment, these all become part of your self concept. It becomes part of your identity, right? But that is just a starting point. That's not your whole self, and your self is much deeper than that. And this is just the conscious, this is the tip of the iceberg, and there are a lot of other aspects, traits that you have in yourself which probably you did not have a chance to explore because of the kind of belief system you are in, or the kind of family you are in, or the culture. There's a lot of things. There's innate and environment factors both involved in shaping who you are. And I think, and in every story, there is a hero and a villain, right? And in our stories, we are both, right? And all the bright aspects and all the dark aspects, both our fears and our darkness, are not separate from us. Like, they are still part of us. They are us, and we need to face them. We need to analyze them. We need to internalize them. So that's very important.
I got a lot of smiles when when Gurleen mentioned villain and heroes. So I know a couple of us have things to say about it. Julie, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was also thinking on the lines of what makes a villain, right? At the end of the day, it's a person who went through certain negative, maybe experiences and processed it in a certain way to become a negative character, whether it's in fiction or in real life. Even if you look at murderers or any offender, you will see that there is a part of their life which has been problematic, troublesome, where they haven't had proper guidance. Maybe there's truancy. There's a lot of things that tip someone over the edge. I don't think there was much of a difference between, let's say, someone who killed someone right before they killed someone. You know, it is that one act that defines them. It is like, in a normal person, that person has not acted on those uh, fantasies or instincts, but there's someone who has given in to those impulses and become a criminal. So I think somewhere or the other, that kind of filter is what separates someone from, like, the shadow from the good part. And I think a lot of it also comes from the space of we evolved from animals, right? So that those instincts are not going to go away just because we wish them to go away. They are a part of our unconscious, and all our training from childhood, right from childhood, is to be a good person, is to be acceptable, is to be socially acceptable. So that nobody really focuses on those impulses which are not so okay, not so good to have, and which is why it is very difficult for us even today to accept those impulses. So unless we really accept them, like, acceptance is a much larger step. I think first step would be to even acknowledge that you have something like this, and to sort of even say कि हाँ ऐसा हो सकता है. It is possible. It is not like you're always Mr. Goody Two Shoes. So yeah, I mean, once that journey of accepting that, okay, there is a negative or a part of me, it can help you become a more balanced person. I won't say it will help you become a great or a good person, but a more balanced, more sensible person, I think. Because when you know who you are, you also need to know what your negatives are. You can't just be like, I know all the good things about myself, but I don't know anything that's bad in me. That's kind of unrealistic.
But Juhi, on that note, I want to add something over there. So it does not necessarily have to be negative or bad, right? I'm giving an example. For instance, if I identify myself as an agreeable person or a soft-spoken person, I might have a tendency to repress away any drives that I have for, say, assertiveness. Because I'm afraid of betraying that self-image that I have, that I'm this humble person.
But I have a doubt there where generally when from whatever I've read, dark psychology usually refers to the even I would go so far as to say the predatorial aspects of human nature, right? So isn't that what we are talking about here, or is
Right.
it even the really something that is perceived as negative and something that is actually negative are two different things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I was
I'm just
talking about shadow.
wondering.
I was talking about shadow. That shadow can be
Okay,
positive and
okay,
negative both.
okay.
I just want to ask something, which is a bit unrelated, but can those who are not speaking cut off the microphone because there's like a lot of background noise?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I just texted them. Thanks, Thomas. Um, I think Gulin and Juhi, what you said there was super interesting, and I was just taking it in. But there was a little bit talk about accepting and acknowledging what's your dark side, right? And obviously, Thomas has had an experience where he's like, I don't know if it's unconscious or learned behavior. I actually want to know why is it so important. So obviously, we'll be more balanced. We can answer that interview question. What's your limitation? But what is the larger goal here of knowing your dark side? What is the goal? What are we getting at? We obviously um, you know, we obviously understand positive psychology that you can build on your strengths and you can become a better human being, you can do a better job. What is the larger goal of understanding your dark side? Like Julie mentioned just now that a lot of times these culprits or criminals who have acted on their dark sides are no different from people who haven't. They have just not given their impulses. So it's just about understanding, right? I have a dark side. And if these did not exist, if courts did not exist, I would just be a dark human as well, just as bad as the next person. So what is the larger goal here?
I think I don't know if it's a goal per se, but just as a member of this discussion, I felt that as I think Guli mentioned in a Facebook post, it's not to view psychopaths or just seeing things from that mainstream lens, wherein when we're talking about dark psychology, we are just attending to how it's already viewed in the media. And I think the idea was to take this plunge and actually kind of get in touch with one's own dark side. However much we might be comfortable talking about it here is another thing altogether. And I think in everything that people were saying, I think two things kept coming to my mind. Dark as per whom? That's the question that it starts from. So I think when we are talking about anything which is dark, as I think Thomas said or somebody else mentioned, it's a lot to do with something which hasn't been assimilated. Anything that stays unassimilated in you is something that you're likely to experience as dark. It could be an uncontrollability, it could be an impulse, it could be an emotion, it could be a behavioral pattern, it could be conscious, it could be unconscious. But the idea is that you are aware that something keeps happening which you don't settle well with. And while I'm saying that, and if I share that with 10 people, for example, if I'm a cleanliness freak, and if I don't have my room clean, and that makes me very anxious and those things to the point that I can have a nervous breakdown, maybe that's my dark side. And even if I share it with other people, the way they would view me is in terms of good and bad. They'll be like, okay, you're going through something, but not necessarily that you're a bad person. So I think when we're discussing, I keep kind of oscillating between whether I'm judging myself or whether I'm kind of going by that social norm thing, wherein if the person is deviating from what is considered to be correct or normal, then we say okay, sociopath, antisocial, whatever. So I'm not thinking along those lines. And to answer your question, matlab, it's a very implicit process for me, but I was hoping that whatever discussion we have, it would generate some insight for each of us. However vocal we might be about it is secondary. But if we firstly arrive at a better understanding of our own darkness, what makes it dark, and whether we want to change or do something about it, or whether we can assimilate it. So for example, just on the top of my head, another example can be sexual preferences. If the person has assimilated it into his or her life and is open about it, then maybe it's no longer a dark side. though other people might condemn him. Oh my God, he's so this, he's so that. And when we're talking of things in terms of impulses or we're talking about predatory forces, we keep forgetting that a large part of any predatory force, when it's turned inwards in the form of any sort of masochism or self-jeopardizing pattern, that also makes for a lot of what we call dark side. So it's not just about how much harm do you do to the other person. It's also about, are you doing something repetitively to yourself, which kind of is hampering you in any which way. So these are my thoughts so far on this.
So I'll build on what you said, Astha, and I'm going to talk a little bit about just a very little about John Bowlby's work on attachment theory. And I think, not going into the theory, I'm sure most of you know about it. Um, so if you're not in the secure bracket, yeah, you're trying to fill it up with something or the other. And I see it varies in degrees, yeah. So there is self-inflicted dark side. So, I cut myself, I do pornography, I stare at women and I, put crackers inside dogs' asses and things like that, or whatever I do, yeah. So it moves from me to the outside. So whether it is self-inflicted, am I inflicting someone else? And then there are degrees, you know, it starts with disturbing something, then making it dysfunctional, and then the other D I use is death, where it just puts an end to a whole lot of relationships or even ends in termination of life. So there are varying degrees. And also, what is the environment? If the environment is, I'm not known in the environment, I can get away with a lot of stuff, which you see in mobs. In mobs, very educated, nice people, who never hurt a fly also start doing very dark stuff. So there is a momentum which is there in mobs. So it's also the environment. You may be a very sober guy for 40 years of your life, and then impulse, like Juhi had mentioned, there is impulsive action, and some people become very cold after that, or they just stop doing that dark side of themselves. They become very shocked and they say, oh my God, I have this side also, I've done this. And it's mostly an action of impulse. But if you start repeating it and you start getting away with it, then it becomes a very conscious design in your life, like the Asaram Bapus, etc. Yeah. So those are the things. Then it becomes, I get the God syndrome, that no one's going to touch me. It's no more an impulse. Then it's a design. So I think there are a lot of parallels of situations and degrees, self and others. And then there is a level which is brothers in arms also. So you see there are pedophile clubs. Yeah. So you warm up to me, I warm up to you, and we start a whole movement together. So there is a very dark side to that clubbing part also. So that's my offering. I mean, my understanding, and I've enjoyed abnormal psychology before it was called dark psychology a lot. So yeah, this is what it talks about.
I had a conversation with a friend 2 days ago who has like some kind of, I'd say, addiction troubles, and I kind of explained him an example I had from an article I read about Britney Spears, who at some point in her life was addicted to whatever you can imagine. And she explained that she got out of it by writing about it, by writing what were the triggers to each one of the drugs. And at some point in my life, I was smoking a little bit of too much of marijuana, and I actually quit the marijuana by actually trying to understand what, like, writing about this unconscious thing within me, which would trigger me rolling a joint. And I think that's where the looking for the the shadows and the dark side is important, is to, I don't think you can get rid of these impulses, but I think by getting to know them, you can control them. Like you see, like, for example, I would say negative behaviors such as emotional blackmail or gaslighting or intimidation, etc. Those are behaviors, if you learn about these behaviors within you and how these behaviors within you you might end up using these behaviors. I don't think it will make you stop using these behaviors, but I think it will make you use these behaviors against, for example, your enemies, rather than against your children or your friends. Or, I mean, I hope no one has enemies here, but we all have like some like conflictual situation where we can't be nice or kind anymore, and 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 it's better to be more conscious of these behaviors, to use them in situation where I would say it's more appropriate than to use them in situation where it's more self-destructive. Than so yeah, I think like dog behaviors are like self-destructive behaviors, and getting to know these self-destructive behaviors, like it's like a force, it's like an energy that we have. And getting to know, I remember reading a book a few years ago about the demons, like, and it called it the demons, and it said that we all have like demons with us, and like that comes from our past and from past experience, etc. And it said that you can get rid of your demons, but what you can do is you can like tame them, you can like learn how to behave with them, and learn how to have them, I would say, playing in your favor rather than than having them working against you. And so I had my friends 2 days ago who has a little bit of a problem with drinking, and I was explaining him to, like, you know, imagine you just go home and you invite all your demons to have like a board meeting and to discuss with them, like, how can we make that more productive for the two of us rather than having you guys just coming. Because he told me that 2 days before he found himself getting drunk as hell with someone, and he was very much blaming himself for that. And it was like, so try to see what are like those deep things inside you, like whether it's the validation that you get when you get drunk, or whether it's the satisfaction, or it's the physical sensations, or whatever. And try to bring this part of yourself, and discuss with this part of yourself, to try to understand how you can uh, make it use these things in a manner that benefits you rather than a manner that costs you.
You know, I'll want to add on that. When you said the demons, you have to sit with them, you have to realize them, the self-destructive behaviors. I think I've had a pretty good experience, or pretty bad experience about that a couple of years ago. And it made me realize two things. A, it's either going to destroy us, or B, if someone gets to know about this, they can manipulate us, they can influence us, and they can make us a medium through which they can do something bad and destructive. So if we don't understand our demons, and if we don't tame them, because obviously getting rid of them is very difficult, uh, they will literally make us a medium, a tool for something that's really bad. And this is where dark psychology needs to come in. This is the major goal: to understand ourselves, to work on ourselves, so that we are able to differentiate, and the moments we are exposed to our triggers, we are able to make a decision of yes and no, right and wrong, where we are able to guide our behaviors, our emotions, and not being overpowered by them. And so one of the basic things I see today is that whenever someone said about the pedophile groups, the clubs that exist, and why they exist. It's not just because we are someone who takes pleasure in that. It's because someone has also influenced us. So, okay, that thought was there in us. And because someone added on to it, someone influenced us, so we get more and more attached to that idea. And thus, we're not able to collectively help ourselves. We are going down in a cycle, down a path that will eventually catch up with us and do a lot more damage than good. And so that's the whole point, is able to control our thoughts, control our emotions, and to understand that we are very susceptible to manipulation, to influence. So that's something I wanted to share.
Yeah, and I think connecting, Amina, what you just said, and everybody with what Astha said, I think sometimes it's less about the bigger things that we do, that we or other people might term as dark, but it's about those small behaviors, right? So like jokes you make, right? Or the comment you pass, or the things you ignore, or something that you do on a regular basis, right? So if you are in a relationship and there's a certain way you behave, or there's a certain thing that you get upset about, I think those are the small moments that we need to almost catch ourselves on and say, right, this is coming from a place which probably I haven't accepted, hasn't assimilated, or is coming from a place that I have learned something wrong or seen something wrong, rather than always being something that is huge, right? Or something that other people have necessarily termed as bad or dark or sociopathic or antisocial. So, like we were discussing about the club and everything, I think that is obviously a manifested whole action, and that has taken a form and a shape. But there are smaller things that we do every day. If you look at a routine and really try to break it down, there might be smaller actions that we are doing that are bringing out that dark side or that demon that exists in us, and we don't necessarily take a note of that. And I feel like sometimes what I've seen is taking a note of your everyday actions, breaking it down, even if it's good or bad, whatever it is, it just really helps you um, not to do things in vain, right? You become more productive when you know about your day, when you know about where your time is going. Similarly, you become more self-aware, and you know where your day is going, what actions you're doing, what kind of jokes you're laughing at, what kind of things you're liking, what kind of things you're watching. So I think, like you said, I really like that idea of really looking at yourself and thinking, what are the small things in which we are manifesting, or looking at dark psychology within us? What are people's thoughts? I that's really something to say.
So I think one of the very basic emotion that I can associate with dark behaviors, whether it's a demon within us, the villain or the hero, I think the very basic emotion that we experience is fear. And if that and fear, to the extent it can go to any extent, to the extent of facing ourselves. I'm not being able to face myself because of so and so thoughts or so and so thing which I have in myself, which is in the society is not considered to be good. So invariably that fear, it can go to any extent. So it can also take disguised forms, like forming clubs, or like getting into some kind of activities which is in some way it's harming yourself or harming others. So somewhere I feel that people very immediate, very conveniently, they kind of group it as good and bad, or how to change it. But the first thing is, let's deal with the fear. Why are you scared? What is going to happen? How is it going to impact you? How is it, and through you, how is it going to impact others? And probably I think that uh, you know uh, attacking that fear and kind of tackling it, handling it in a very, very tactful manner is something very, very essential. Because very even so something like drinking, addiction, these are very serious things. Even in our daily lives, the basic sense of insecurity, um, something going out of our control, or say not having enough monies, okay, that financial security, other kinds of security, these all somewhere it comes up from a basic sense of fear. Somewhere I think that fear needs to be dealt with right at the beginning, when that's the root from where all other, in various disguised forms, in many disguised forms, different kinds of behavior comes up. So and that's I think that's what we have to right at the beginning, we have to deal with when it comes to dark psychology. How do we kind of use it as a, look at it from a positive aspect, and not just use it as a, just kind of forcefully forget it. No, don't forget it. Accept that you're scared, accept that you're in fear. Now what? And that's where the discussion should kind of come up.
I think another sort of like dark behavior, and I think it was Shafumisa who was talking about like small things, and a thing which I believe can be very illustrative is like racism. And racism is very much often, we very much often say this person is racist or this person is racist, but I think racism is pretty much a series of like unconscious things that we don't really realize. Like having traveled a lot and a lot in South Asia, I was called many times a racist by people because I would say something which I wouldn't thought was offensive, but that would actually be offensive for the people in front of me. And I also experienced myself a lot of like racism, which was I can take an example. When I used to live in Kathmandu, I was living not far from a place where there were like a lot of taxi drivers, and like they just stay there all day and they don't move. They just wait. But each time they see me, obviously because I look different, they'll be like, "Oh, hey, sir, come here," because they have that idea of yeah, white people, and this is a form of racism which I think is not very conscious, or like just people who just come in the street and come and talk to me as if I was their friend without no apparent reason or anything like that, which is actually offensive, but is pretty much perceived as being welcoming or somehow being warm, which is also comes from like small things. And I think very much often when I witness racism, it's people who do like small things without realizing that it's actually racist. And yeah, many things like that.
Yeah, yeah, I think agree on that. And I think just continuing on the travel bit as well. So I I love traveling, right? I did a lot of solo traveling and I generally when I'm not able to travel, it just really makes me feel different and weird and out of place and unsettled and stressed. And I realized, and I think it's been a month or so that I've been dealing with this idea that maybe I'm traveling because it's a form of escape almost, or it's almost like I don't want to deal with a lot of things, right? I'm just gonna avoid them, go for 10 days, be unreachable and things like that. So I think what I saw for most of my years as very positive as an experience that's obviously giving me a lot of strength and whatnot. I think there's also a flip side to it, or there's almost, let's say, a dark side to it, which I hadn't really noticed until somebody made me notice it, or pointed that out, or I was just questioning, when do I feel this urge to travel, especially during COVID? Like I've been like, oh, I can't do it, and it's just really stressing me out. And I was just going back to when was the time when I genuinely just wanted to travel and I couldn't stop myself. And these were usually high points of stress, right? Like whenever there was something true stress where I was like, right, I'm out, going away, 10 days, don't care. So I think, again, just going back and reflecting on where things are coming from, I think racism is also, so like Thomas, your example of people coming up and trying to be warm and nice, it's hospitality. But then there's also like there is something uncertain in front of me and I want to remove uncertainty, right? And in those situations you tend to say things and you come from a pattern which you have learned, but you don't necessarily understand that that's not the pattern in front of for the person in front of you. So I think just looking at small things that you do and understanding there is both sides to it could be a really nice insight, or a window into what dark behaviors we do have as human beings here.
So I'm building a lot on what has been offered here. Um, I was with my dark side for nearly 30 years, and there are three things that helped me step out. One is my sense of humor. Yeah. So I looked at it very humorously, and I said, my dark side has a lot of focus. The energy, you cannot change the amount of energy. You can only displace it to something positive or continue with the dark side. So I one day sat down and I said, okay, what are some of the great things about this dark side of mine? So one was a very clear focus and goal that I desired what I desired. Yeah. Second was everything else would become a blur. everything else would become a blur. And I would go and get it, right? And it could be any hour of the day. And then I started thinking, and the second thing that I did a lot of work on was, what was I trying to fill up? So somebody called it fear, I said attachment. So you can give it different nomenclature, but you're trying to fill up something or you're trying to avoid something, etc. And then I realized that everything will not get filled up, everything will not be understood. And it's useless, wasting your time on trying to figure out every little thing. And the metaphor that works for me, and I use it a lot with with people I work with, is probably Thomas may not understand, but the metaphor I use is Jal Tarang. That if you have to make music, your life will be like different bowls filled with different levels of water. So there will be some emptiness and there will be some fill up. And that display of various bowls is what is going to make music. So that's the metaphor that has worked very well for me. That everything doesn't need to be understood, everything doesn't need to be filled up, everything does not need to be displaced. Yeah. And you need to draw out that energy. What is that? Where is that energy going? Because 30 years of being in the dark is a very long time. And that's what served me well. And definitely a sense of humor. You can't look back and get miserable about it. You can laugh about it, a little bit. Or that's it. That's from me. I mean, my journey from dark to what I think is light. I don't know whether it is light or not, but yeah.
I love that. I love that you said use humor, because I feel like a lot of things that we do, and obviously, we have this tendency to quickly say good or bad. I did this right, I did this wrong. If you just laugh at some of the things you do, I think it just makes the situation better. Like I was thinking about, somebody mentioned being insecure in relationships. I would get pretty like annoyed if somebody was talking to me while I was at work, right? Like honestly, I would flip out. Like, dude, I'm at work. Don't talk to me right now. Don't text me right now. Don't ask for my time right now. And like it's like after a couple of months, I just started like laughing at it, like I know you texted me, but I was at work, whatever. I just think like that flipping out was coming from the fact that I cannot miss out on work, and there's this intense need to be on point, on focus, not make any mistakes. And when I started laughing about it, not only the relationship improved, but it also reduced my stress towards work, and how much I need to kind of let go of my weekends, and not think about 9 to 5, but think about like no work hours, blah blah blah. So I think definitely having a sense of humor, laughing it out sometimes usually helps. So if like some of us do kind of go back from the session and think about the small things that we do, I think first thing would be just laugh at them, not ponder too much, but genuinely laugh at them.
I think laughing is part of like self-acceptance, and looking back at your mistakes and laugh about it is some sort of cognitive reframing which helps process and have a positive outlook. If each time like someone makes a mistake, that someone just start being like no, like feeling bad about doing that mistake and getting angry each time that person is reminded of that mistake, I think that's the best way to do that mistakes again and to do it even bigger.
Hey, Lisa, why don't you share something? You have been very silent and quiet.
So it's such an interesting topic. Honestly, I did not Google what dark psychology is. I was like, I will come here and listen to everybody. It seemed really interesting. And now I think almost everybody, Swagat hasn't said anything, but there's so many amazing ideas about it. And I can actually connect it to Sakshi. You were saying one of the good ways to probably identify what you do is through make journaling your actions. And recently I was listening to a podcast by Jay Shetty. He talks about reducing weight just like how diet. So to add to what Sakshi's saying, I think, okay, my internet connection's unstable. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Am I audible? Okay. So to add to what Sakshi is saying, I think it's not, dark side doesn't end with what you do or the little things you do repetitively, it's what you think. And so Jay Shetty suggests that and I tried this out myself, for a week, every single day, write down your actions, even the smallest things you're doing, but also write down the thoughts that are coming in your mind when that happens to you or when you do it, and just for 7 days. And at the end of those 7 days, just like, take a look at what has come out in the thoughts column, and you'll actually see a pattern of typical thoughts that come in your mind. Don't judge them, don't label them. And I did that myself, and it is amazing. A lot of the dark side comes out there. It's a lot easier to, when you see a pattern, than to see standalone thoughts or deeds that you might do. And it's like in the smallest things. And I have a recent example. Like my friend, she's on some some dance competition in their community, and she sent out her video, and you're supposed to like it, and it's a voting thing. So I voted. She's my childhood friend. And then today I was like, I asked her the results out, and I just caught myself thinking that I actually don't want her to be winning this. It sounds terrible. It sounds really bad. She's been my friend for over 30 years, but somewhere I'm asking her with so much excitement. And there's a part of me, which, like Thomas said, sometimes you don't know where these thoughts come from. There is a part of me which is like, I hope she doesn't win the first prize. I'm not even competing. I'm not even in that dance competition. So it's these sides which strange. And of course, if I sit and think about it or talk to a therapist, I will go back to why I feel like this about her. I probably know we were competitors in school all along, like for art and craft and everything. Maybe it comes from there. But on the outside, do I want her to win? Yeah, I'm indifferent. But so it's these little thoughts. And also what Amina said. Now moving to the part where you can be manipulated, I think I have been, and maybe all of us, I have experienced that, where there's somebody who's really close to you. They know exactly what ticks you off, right? They know what sets off that alarm and that trigger, and which makes you batshit crazy. It is a behavior you're ashamed of. You know it's a dark side. You don't want to do it, but they can manipulate you into doing it. And then point out that, see, I told you this is how you are. This is what you do. And then you beat yourself up more over it. So the whole thing is quite a dark space. But yeah, the more we are aware of it, and the more we embrace, not in the sense of just, being proud of it, but channeling it a better way, being smarter about ourselves, being a more aware person, self-aware person, I think we can achieve a lot more. But great inputs from everybody.
You're fantastic, Lisa. I mean, for sharing that, first of all, now we are talking. This is, it takes a little bit of time to get to a stage where you're open and you're able to say these things aloud. And I'm glad we got to that stage. And it'll be nice if we keep the momentum going. But thanks for being the first one there, Lisa. But it's always very hard to say it right. Like when you were talking about it, I just thought. So this morning I was working out, and I've worked out. I've picked up weights after 2 weeks, right? So 2 weeks I was moving and shifting, and I hadn't picked up weights, and I felt terrible in my body, right? I was like, oh, I look so bad. So I was sending a photo to my boyfriend. I was like, oh, I look so fat, and then I was like, I unsent that. I said, no, don't say that. The moment you say that, you're literally putting lack of confidence and whatnot and body image issues in the forefront. But I don't think I think like that. It's just coming from a lot of outside perspective of how you should look like. So I was like, no, I'm not even gonna put that in a text. I'm not gonna say that. But obviously there is something going on there, and something that you're ashamed of, or expectations and whatnot. So I think really nice that you mentioned that. And I just wanted to, yeah, like this is open, right? Like share if you feel like you've caught yourself thinking negatively, or thought of a dark side.
I think I can. I was having a similar thought before other people. I think Lisa pitched in. I was just thinking, that, for instance, I mean, this can be looked, because I'm a therapist, I can kind of rationalize away with my own set of feelings very conveniently. I can intellectualize quite a lot about it. So one typical scenario or common scenario is, for example, a client with whom things are not going great, and he's angry with me, and he kind of throws that anger in the form of saying that, okay, I feel like killing myself, you know. And obviously when I'm angry, I don't act on it in the session. I might have a thought also, oh my god, I really wish you do that, and then I work through it in supervision. But for me, the dark side is not that I had this angry thought. The dark side is that, as if my first concern was not his well-being, but this, that if he kills himself, then what about my practice? How will it reflect on me? And I'm like, shit, dude, that's how I think. Huh? Very nice. Like, my clients will be happy to know that they're in the care of such a great therapist. But then I take it up. But how much can I kind of interpret and work my way through it in my personal therapy and then in supervision? At the end of the day, I feel like shit. I'm like, oh my God, this is how I feel. And this is how I think, that if this guy does something to himself, my first thought is, I have to save my ass. So I think, as one of the persons here mentioned, which is very true, that if you're living life in a very fear driven way, then this dark side keeps kind of coming up. And I think the other way to kind of get hold of it is any disparity that you note in yourself. As I think Lisa was also saying, that you say one thing but you mean another, or you are saying something and you're doing something else, or that this whole social facade that you create. So I mean, just kind of taking note of those things will also kind of tell you where you are. And I mean, as I think Lisa was saying, which I found very useful, that any of these things which kind of gnaw at us or is a nagging thought, we can stay with it. So for instance, now it's important for me to know that what is my anxiety about my practice. And then that will be a different gamut altogether, that, okay, you're a clinical psychologist, but there's only this one lame body in India, which is RCI, and I don't know how they work, they're very bureaucratic, blah, blah, blah. So in my head, the whole scenario will be very different. Okay, I'll be like, if I do something which is erroneous, I'll be kind of completely penalized for it. And that's exactly the kind of thought which is a fear driven thought. And that doesn't allow me to be me. That doesn't allow me to be even angry or feel that my anger is legitimate with any person, because automatically my first thought is, oh, what does it make me? So yeah, in the spirit of being super honest here, and hopefully no clients will be coming from you guys now. So, yeah.
I'm going to give a personal example, which is my last relationship, which turned in a very special manner. Like, it really became a museum of darkness at the end. And you had like two people who were doing one after the other, like unconscious thing that were more pathetic one after the other. And like, someone was asking, like, what is the point of you know, looking at the dark side and studying your own dark psychology. And I realized that, like, after it ended, I took a lot of time trying to, obviously quarantine started, so I had a lot of time for myself, and I took a lot of time trying to analyze how I ended up doing what I did during the whole process. And it really helped me go through a lot of things in my life, which I used to do, which weren't very good for me or for the people around me, and like negative images I had of myself, or negative images I had of other people, or some aggressive behaviors I could have, or some, and being able to look into all of these things and actually write these things down, I realized that it really helped me have way more mind flexibility somehow. Like, before that, like before quarantine, before I started taking all that time writing all of this stuff about myself, trying to better understand what was how I triggered this kind of behavior within me, helped me better understand myself, like from like what was the negative things in myself, and the fact that I better understand things make me feel like I don't know how to define mind flexibility, but that I way more flexible in my decision making, and that by being way more flexible in my decision making, I'm actually way more peaceful with myself regarding a lot of things, and that being way more peaceful with myself helps me a lot. Like I used to, like I'm a writer, so obviously I have a lot of insomnia and things like that, and like I realized that before, when I had insomnia, I would like blame myself for having insomnia, and because I would blame myself for having insomnia, I would blame myself for blaming myself, which would make me even more anxious and etc. And not so far ago, having done all this shadow work within myself, I still had insomnia, but I was pretty cool about it. Like it was like, oh, just have another insomnia, and I was just like spending the whole night looking at the ceiling and just being like not feeling bad about it or not having troubles about it. And it actually helped me sleep better. The fact that I actually accept, well, I can sleep.
Nice. I really like how you mentioned, Thomas, that you just you just say, yeah, it's happening, and you're cool about it. It really helps relieve a lot of unnecessary stress, to be honest. So Agut, why don't you share something, because we don't like quiet people here, and you have the best drink out of the group, so please.
No, I'm just trying to take in everything. I didn't really know about, like, Google about dark psychology. Can you guys hear me? My Wi-Fi is really disturbed. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I think lots of interesting points I'm just taking in. Uh, Talking about dark psychology, I think for me, I think what is considered dark depends really on context. Like certain traits that seems dark within me may like have, in fact, later in another context help me. For example, like I was like kind of a bullied kid in school, so I always had a problem with direct confrontation, or I would get easily pushed over. But that trait itself, like in some other context, for example, it also helped me to avoid unnecessary risk-taking behaviors. So I think it's mostly like someone pointed earlier that I think the important point of talking about this dark side is ultimately acceptance. So we can laugh over it, and we can realize that even if certain trait is dark at the moment, in another context, it might help me. So, so yeah, I really like the point about humor. I think we can, humor really helps to accept parts within ourselves that we struggle with, or like how to overcome fear. Like I think fear is really exhausting in a way, because when you're consciously trying to not do something because of fear, you use up a lot of mental resources in trying to not do or not behave or not act in a certain way. So I think humor helps to overcome that fear and accept parts of ourselves that we really struggle with. And also, like, when you talk about, I have this question, like when you talk about dark something, some traits within us that we consider dark. So, like dark for me is never dark for whom. Like I can have, I've seen people with extreme manipulative behavior who can be really exploitative and manipulative, but it's dark for, like, it's bad for people around them, but it really doesn't disturb them. So it really helps them in their success. They can become good corporate leaders by exploiting others, or making other people like manipulate them to get their goals. But that behavior in itself might be very rewarding for them, because that can help them grow as a good leader. But it can be very disturbing for people around them. So, so So what we see, consider as dark is not necessarily not necessarily someone like what we consider dark traits is not something necessarily that we ourselves struggle with, but sometimes it can be traits within ourselves that we are very comfortable with, but it then becomes a problem for people around us. So yes.
I think, Swagat, just to add to what you're saying, I feel that it's a difficult point to make. I mean, we have all come across people who might, for example, be manipulative or who are quote unquote unemotional, who can kind of compartmentalize it and do away, and they're like, I'm the strong person. So my sense as a person is that if you have to compartmentalize and demarcate yourself so much, then you're already in a lot of darkness. Even if the awareness is not there as to what it is doing to you, you will be paying the cost. For example, people who are manipulative or very I don't know, goal driven in that way, it will be very difficult for them to have good relationships, and they wouldn't even have the language, by the way, to articulate that they're suffering in this way. So one after the other, their relationship or something would be suffering, or in some facet they'll be suffering, and they wouldn't even realize that there's something that they can do differently. So I think from what you're saying, what I borrow is that if somebody is that unaware about how kind of they are being so ignorant, then that's very sad actually, because then they're likely to stay stuck with that thing also, and it is going to have repercussions. It's not that it doesn't, it's just that they don't have that agency or that language to kind of talk about it and say that, oh, I'm doing something or this is happening to me. But they'll be like, yeah, I'm definitely not as happy. Or for example, people who are very for example, we see engineers. I hope there are no engineers here, but I'm just borrowing an example. So for example, you'll see that they were kind of maybe attending to their survival need. In a country like ours, which is a developing country, they chose a profession wherein it ensured that you will be earning well, and they did that. And now when they're in their 40s, they realize that, is that it? That's what life was all about. So you will see that the kind of restlessness and irritation that they experience and the way they express it will be very different from you and me, wherein we can articulate, express, be reflective. So what I'm trying to say is, people who are a certain way, from the outset, it might look that they're having so much fun with their manipulation and by being this ignorant people, but they also suffer. They definitely do suffer, because the quality of the life that they have is very different from compared to a person who's very self-aware. And the worst and the saddest part is that because they don't have that awareness, they stay stuck. So I think that is a huge takeaway for me from this whole discussion, that self-awareness is, I think, liberty, is freedom. If you are aware of something, chances are you'll not fall for it. And then there is hope. So, yeah.
From what you guys have said about compartmentalization and self-awareness, uh, for me, my dark side kind of started from childhood, and it reached to its peak about 3-4 years ago. And I don't know, I think it will be a trigger, but I'll still say that I used to fantasize self-harm and being tortured, and that kept on happening. But I've come to a point where that has reduced to a huge extent. But till date, it happens, which is where my perfectionism comes in. If I don't think I'm up to the level of where I'm perfect, where I've been very clear and articulate, uh, that those thoughts of being tortured or self-harm come back again. But this time the difference is I'm able to spot them and I'm able to compartmentalize them. I'm like, okay, don't be hard on yourself. I accepted that I'm still having my weak moments, which is why I will just accept them and I will try to do the best what I can do, which is something that happened just before the session started. I was one of those moods of mine, and I was just thinking, should I attend today's session or not? And it can be it is necessary sometimes to compartmentalize and self-awareness. And this is where I think if we are aware of our dark side, of our limitations, of something that we're struggling with, we can help ourselves and we can ask for help. And we sometimes know that we know that there can be methods that can be applied. And literally, I just brushed my teeth 10 minutes before the session started. Like for in India, it's 6 p.m. So I haven't brushed my teeth since the morning because I'm in that mood, I'm in that phase. And this is where understanding our dark side comes in, If for 3 years I hadn't gone back again and again and again and figured out where things went wrong, where the manipulation happened, I don't think today, when I had that self-harming thought, I would have been able to compartmentalize and say, you know what, it's okay. I'm going through a tough time and I don't need to be hard on myself. And I now take escapism to other matter. I do something else that will be good for me, even if it's not productive today. And I think a lot of self-healing requires you to accept that there is something not right with me, but I definitely can work on it. So just this is the thought that has been going on in my head for the last couple of minutes after hearing you guys. And I think this is why we need to talk about the dark side, because if we don't talk about it, it's just going to end up being really bad. So I don't know. That's what I wanted to share.
Thanks for sharing that, Amina. I mean, it's incredible what people go through right before they jump on camera, right? Uh, I had a nacho chip stuck to my throat once. I could have died. Fair warning, I could have died, but here I am. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think obviously there are a lot of thoughts here, and it is interesting for me to see how people love talking about the dark side even more than positive psychology. Because if this was a session about positive psychology, it would have ended like that. But we obviously love hearing about things we are doing wrong, right? Or things we don't often get a chance to talk about. So, like you said, Amina, really important to talk about it. Not just, I'm going to be selfish here, not just because, it makes for self healing, but it makes for interesting sessions as well. So, thank you. Um, for me, I think the biggest takeaway was, Swagat, what you said about sometimes, and that is very, very important to me. That is a concept that I hold very close to my heart, is black is always not a bad color, right? So if you're talking about dark, you're not necessarily talking about things that are going wrong with you or not working out for you. You have a dark side and you're able to use it to get what you want. And people do that. And we all do that. I mean, I've been manipulative in relationships, or I've been bad to my brother to get the last piece of chocolate and whatnot. And it's just it's working out for you, and that's why you continue to do that. It can be a small thing, it can be a big thing, but like everybody has, and I think everybody's agreeing on that, that you just want to be aware about it and want to be able to use it in a better way, use it in the right instance with the right people. Instead of hitting your children, you're using it in a way that gets you to a stage where you want to be. So I guess it's a lot about awareness, about tips like laughing at it, being humorous about it, accepting it, putting it in the right shelf and picking it out when you need it. Um, I think I think my key message was, don't necessarily think about dark psychology as harm and bad and dark and black and whatnot, but actually those things in you, those thoughts you have, those actions that you do, that can also be your power, that you can also utilize in the end. Um, what are people's kind of final thoughts here? And I know we have come up more than half hour, definitely. So final thoughts.
Adding on to what you said, Sakshi, uh, those understanding, picking out those concepts, those experiences, that's what makes us good people. That's what gives meaning to the positive psychology. If it wasn't for this dark side, positive psychology is for nothing. Why do we even have it? So that's just my final thought about it.
I might talk for a long time here, but I have a thing I want to say, like, about manipulation. I think any interaction between two human beings somehow is a form of manipulation. If I tell you a story about a dog I saw in the street, somehow it's gonna impact your mind and it's gonna impact you for the rest of your life. And I remember seeing one day in a chapter in a book about like narcissism, a comparison between two persons that were considered as very like deep narcissists. And the first one was Joseph Stalin, who just for the sake of having, people looking at him, or for the sake of having, his portrait everywhere, for the sake of being worshipped, manipulated millions of people, killed millions of people, organized like party in his palace where he would like force people to drink, and the first one who would say something stupid while getting drunk would get shot at the end of the evening or something like that. And then there is the second person is the captain of a ship who was like, I think, crossing the North Pole by mistake, and there were a lot of problems on the ship, and he started making like arrangements between the people. Like he would give an information to one, he would like tell something to another one which he knew would like get an impulse, and he did that in order to um, bring them home safely. And by doing this small manipulation to like each one of the people on the boat, he was actually able to bring all of them safely back home. And if you see like a boss in a company or a superior in the army, or like someone in leading a group somehow is manipulating like the people in a group. My roommate in Kathmandu was a guy who was bringing like group of American kids to the mountains, and he told me that what he was doing by choosing who would sleep in the room with who, etc., was like also some form of like manipulation. And manipulation is very much often seen as, it has a very negative connotation, but I think manipulation is just, it's part of every human interaction. Now the question is, what is the outcome that I want? Like you talk about like the chocolate cake, and like if you get the last piece of the chocolate cake by making your brother believe that he is a very bad person and by making him feel very guilty, then obviously it's like malicious manipulation. But if by getting the last piece of the chocolate you save your brother's life, which seems very absurd, but why not? And if by getting that last piece of the chocolate cake you save his life, then it becomes like more benevolence. And so that's, I think, something which I think it's a word, manipulation, that is very much misunderstood. And I think it's a bit sad, because if we more looked at it as something neutral, which can have either a positive, so a desirable outcome, something negative, which is an undesirable outcome, maybe we could, you know, see the word manipulation in a more open-minded manner.
Yeah, I agree there, Thomas. Definitely just thinking about usual terms in a different context and putting context to everything. Isn't that what psychologists do anyway? Just put context and everything is subjective. Final thoughts, Gurleen, Lisa, Swagat.
Talking about, like, going back to Thomas' point, I just want to say uh, one thing, one lesson for me that psychoanalysis I took take from psychoanalysis is that the very story that we tell about ourselves when we talk about self-awareness or stuff, like the very story that subjective feelings that we, like subjective experiences of things that we tell about ourselves itself can be a lie. So the very narrative that we tell about ourselves can be a lie. So for me, so when deciding whether something is dark or not, or so whether something is positive or negative, so I rely more on what my behavior, how my behavior impacts other people, more than how I see it myself. So just to give you, like, just to make my point clear, like, it's like Thomas talked of Stalin, for example, Stalin or Hitler. Like people like Hitler, for example, had a very clear story about himself. Like he never saw himself as an evil person. Like Hitler wrote wrote a book about Mein Kampf justifying his position. So the very, it's not a lie that he's telling others. It's a lie he's telling himself as well. So self-awareness in that sense can be tricky. So So for me, Hitler is not what Hitler thought of himself. For me, Hitler is what he did to others. It's how I see Hitler as. So for me, it understand like we'll decide whether some parts of myself or part of a certain trait is dark or whether it's positive. It's more important for me to see it from other people's eyes, like how my behavior is impacting people around me or other people, rather than completely relying on my subjective analysis of the thing itself. Because our self-analysis or the very idea of self-awareness can be deceptive in nature.
Yep, 100% very interesting thought there, Swagat. We can be subjective and we can manipulate ourselves as well. You don't have to raise your hand. Just jump in. Just start chatting. Come on. What's your final thought?
So, a couple of things that I'm taking away, and I had a blast. Seriously, I had a really good time listening to everybody's ideas and perceptions and everything. So one of the things that's is Vikram, right? The person who left the Jal Tarang example. It was so beautiful, and it just made so much sense to me that we try to keep filling up things, voids that we feel in our life with X, Y, Z things. No matter how positive the thing, you're still trying to fill it up, and that's a lot of work. But why not let it be the way it is, and that has its own beauty and it has its own place. So I think that's my biggest takeaway. Apart from that, I think the way I see it, so good or bad, the positive or the shadow or whatever you call it, it's a spectrum. It's not an either or. And personally for me, the more I let the boundaries merge, the more I let the good spill over into the bad also spill over into the good. I think that's where the growth and that's where the learning happens, rather than trying to compartmentalize ki, okay, in XYZ things I'm good or in XYZ things I'm bad. And also this control that we have is so like we think we can control things within us. I don't really think we can. What we can do is kind of this word is misunderstood a lot, but surrender to it by not making it our god and by not letting it overpower us, not in that sense at all, but in the sense of surrendering to its nature, seeing how we can work with it, seeing how we can kind of adjust and adapt ourselves to it. I think that's the best we can do. Nobody is getting rid of their demons so easily. That's not happening. So, yeah, I think yeah, that's my takeaway. Thanks.
Yep, another good one, Juhi. There, Astha, what are your final thoughts?
I think, yeah, there's a lot for me to take away from this. I think, as I understood from what everybody said, that there's no one way to view the dark side. And I think, as Swagat was also saying, I saw a lot of value in this, that with the whole idea of self-awareness or kind of self-reflection, we might be fooling ourselves. So the criteria to kind of just check with oneself whether what you're doing is absolutely okay or not is not just to look within, but also to kind of see how it's impacting people outside you. Because at times that supposed self-awareness is just you intellectualizing or other things a lot. And I think, as Vikram was saying, and which Juhi also kind of voiced out here, that I think that comes perhaps with age, because I really don't know how to do it. Keep leaving things unanswered also. Like, if just because you're not getting somewhere, it doesn't mean that you have to rush in, and just kind of having that balance कि ठीक है अभी समझ नहीं आ रहा है तो कभी बाद में आ जाएगा, and kind of being okay with it. So I think overall for me it was kind of about having that balance. Like, there's no external or completely internal agency which can tell you all the time that this is okay, this is not okay. But if you keep checking with both, then chances are that whatever you will be doing will be coming from a place of awareness, and likely that you will be able to assimilate it also. So yeah.
Thank you, Asta. Lisa?
So I think it was a fantastic discussion, and the reason why we probably overshot by more than half an hour, I think also has to do with the fact that there's a sense of comfort in knowing that everybody has this. We don't talk about it enough, but you know, like I think Juhi said, right? Your you're not very different from somebody who could end up killing a person. We aren't. We are all wired to be able to do it. There is something. There's a force out there. I believe in God, so I believe it's the grace of God. It could be anything else. You could believe that it's your upbringing, your culture, your moral compass, or whatever that stops you from doing it. But likelihood and susceptibility, hum sabka hai. We could all be on crime patrol, being the actual perpetrator of something sick. And just knowing that we all have this side, and it's almost like an exercise in like taking the dust off the mirror. You can see yourself a little better. Awareness and also accepting. I think, like Vikram said, you can't understand everything, like where that side comes from, why you thought about it, or why the thought came. And it's okay to not understand and be able to make sense of everything that happens to you or that you do and think. So yeah, it's an amazing session. Great takeaway. Thank you.
Yeah, so many takeaways. Like, I don't know where to start from. I think this was one of the great conversations we have had in the past few months. One is, I think, not identifying with the ego anymore, because I think self is identifying with the ego. So whatever I think I'm an INFP or whatever personality type I identify myself as, that is identifying with ego. So I think for me, taking input from Amina, Swagat, and Astha and others, I personally would want to, look at the people that I judge the most and notice their traits, and then try to find those traits to myself, because chances are, if I have judged an entire group of people, there are traits in there that I actually do have. And then I would want to take those traits again and then express them in the way that's conducive to my growth. So like Amina said, it's not, shadows can be used creatively as well if you get in touch with your other side. So I think for me, that's the biggest takeaway, to really, observe myself. And whenever I feel irritated, I try to understand that what is it that is causing a trouble in my mind. I'm sure it has got to do with me than the other person. That's my takeaway.
Thanks, Gurleen. Swagat, you were saying something there.
Oh, no, I just wanted to add on to I think Lisa's point when she was talking about, like, we can all have the potential to end up in a crime series, like Crime Patrol or something to that. Like, in fact, in a very biological level, like things that make us altruistic or things that make us very empathetic are the same thing that can make us very hostile. For example, oxytocin, for example, the hormone oxytocin. So we all know that oxytocin is the hormone that leads to mother-son bonding, like it helps to develop friendship and makes you more sensible to emotional cues and stuff. But interestingly, there was a Dutch study. So they found that oxytocin does all these things only to people you think as us. At the same time, the people you think as them, it makes you more hostile. So the very hormone in us that makes us very empathetic towards people is the same hormone that makes us very hostile towards people we see as them. So I think the very potentials, the things that make us empathetic person or a very positive person, like we say, has the potentials to make us a person ending up in a Crime Patrol episode or something like that.
Nice. I think that is a very good close to the session. Sorry, you're saying something, Thomas.
No, yeah, I just wanted to react to someone talked about something, and then Juhi put a message saying when you judge someone else, you judge yourself. And I think I remember the first thing I learned when I started looking into psychology was about projection. So the idea that, what I think you are is what I am, or something like that. Like the idea that what you judge in other is something that you refuse to see in yourself. And since we were speaking of self-awareness, I think that that's something I pretty much developed within myself is each time I judge something in someone, like I ask myself if I see that in that person, it means it's also somewhere within me, and it having this, I would say, like protocol in the mind of when I judge someone, it's something inside me, uh, has pretty much helped me develop a lot of self-awareness.
Nice. Well, I hope then everybody does a lot of self-awareness when you go back. If there are key takeaways like you have all mentioned, I hope we get to a stage where we start looking at those things more clearly, take the dust off of the mirror, um, and have a laugh at it. Right. I think this has one of been the hardest sessions to close because everybody loves talking about it. So I'm so excited